advice and opinions expressed by Dr. Granpeesheh and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, and Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism. Doreen Granpeesheh. Dr. Granpeesheh. Doreen Granpeesheh. Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now, you can ask the questions on Ask Dr. Doreen.
Good morning and welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen. I am here with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. We haven't seen you in a while because I've been sick and I've been out and whatever, but we're so thrilled to be back live. I just want to say today is the 17th. It's happy St. Patrick's Day around the world, but it's 2026. We're doing this long distance, but we're here live. And good morning, Dr. Granpeesheh.
Good morning, Shannon, and thank you. You're so kind. I think we've missed a couple of months. I know you were sick for a while, but I was sick for a long time, and I was also traveling, and like a million other things prohibited us from doing the show. So it's lovely to be back.
It's so great to be back. We're live right now, you guys, on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and about a dozen other places. Our fabulous Chris Desmond is going to be showing those to you on the screen. We're going to be taking live questions this morning, and we're thrilled to have you guys here. I'm going to tell you the topic in just a second, but when a friend reaches out and says, I need a favor, please, we both really adore Judith Ursetti at Autism Entertainment, and so Autism in Entertainment, excuse me. They've got an event that's coming up at the end of this month on March 29th. It is a comedy show. It's a fundraiser. It's at the Upstairs Comedy Club in downtown Los Angeles. And she said, Shannon, can you help me spread the word? So I'm putting it out there for everybody. It's going to happen on Sunday, March 29th at 3 p.m. So if you're like me and you like to be home early on Sunday, perfect time. The address is 1415 South Los Angeles Street. That's in Los Angeles, 90015. There is a $50 ticket price because it is a fundraiser, but there is a promo code. You can use the promo code AIE. So Autism in Entertainment is what that stands for. 50. It's a promo code, and you can get there for 50% off. The content for this comedy show is suitable for teens and up. There will be food and beverages available there to purchase. There is parking for $8. They've got an incredible lineup of comics, including Craig Robinson from The Office, Hot Tub Time Machine. Danny Bowman is going to be there. I wonder if she's doing stand-up. That would be a reason to go in and of itself. Stephanie Weir from Mad TV, Hal Sparks from Talk Soup, Monique Marvez, Joy Moore, Vargas Mason, Joshua Meyerowitz, and Jeremy Watkins. It promises to be a really wonderful event, and it is a fundraiser, all for good cause, Autism in Entertainment. If you have questions, you can always reach out to autisminentertainment.org. And of course, you can ask us, and we'll try to promote this because we're packed for shows until May. But so we won't be able to have them on. But we just wanted to put out the word there. Okay, I've done my favor. Which is important. It's important to support your friends.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I didn't want to take time away from you, Dr. Granpeesheh, because for those of you who maybe it's your first time tuning in, your algorithm is just finding us. Dr. Granpeesheh is a true expert in the field of autism. She has been working in this field for more than 40 years. She really has devoted her life to helping support individuals on the spectrum, their families, and everyone who loves them, to help empower everybody to get them to best possible life that they can possibly lead. And that's a wonderful thing. And we are so grateful to her. I know my life would not be my life had it not been for her. And certainly my child's life would not be his life had it not been for her. So we love that when she has the time, she donates this hour to answer your questions, you guys. We always have a starter topic. And our starter topic today is myths about ABA. And I know that's going to set off some things for some people. That's okay. Bring it. Our first question, because I have some starter questions, but you guys can be writing questions in right now. We're able to see them in real time. So the first question, I'm a BCBA. And I was saddened by the WSJ articles that intimated that ABA is only slightly better than daycare. As someone who has devoted their life to quality ABA that makes a difference in people's lives, what did you think about the articles, and what can we do to preserve quality ABA?
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of thoughts about the article in the Wall Street Journal. There are so many different sides to this, So what did I think about the article? I'll answer that first, and then if we can, I should get in a little bit to what do I think about where ABA is going these days, right? Because that's kind of a little bit different. I think that the article, was, I guess, sad to me because it's Medicaid to begin with. Dealing with Medicaid is a very difficult thing. Like, I think people need to know that it's there are many, many, many restrictions when it comes to what they're willing to pay for, and these types of obstacles are difficult to overcome because you're trying to give access to a lot of different people. And so, things like you go into a region or a state and you really want to help a lot of people. There are people knocking down your door, but you can't because Medicaid is taking a really, really long time to approve your application to be a provider, or that it requires licensure by the state, and the state is not licensing anyone for a full year. Like, people don't know these things that happen, and they just make, like, Arizona is a great example. In order to practice in Arizona at the BCBA, not only do you have to be licensed, but the licensing board is literally taking over a year, and you have to live in Arizona. There's a lot of things that are obstacles, right, to just providing care. That said, then there's also a lot of scrutiny. I don't know if you remember in the old days, Shannon, we would always talk about school districts and how you'd go to an IEP and the school district, either your child was not doing well enough or your child was doing too well. Medicaid has other, and it's not just Medicaid. I don't want to, we have this with commercial payers as well, but more so when it comes to Medicaid. They're very, very, it's like, oh, we saw that these children are not making enough progress. Nobody knows what enough is. Or you taught, I don't know, maybe you taught a child how to keyboard so that they could communicate on an OGG device, and that should be under academic, and therefore we don't want to pay for that, and we're going to recoup money that was paid for that 2 years ago. I mean, I can't even tell you how difficult it is, and there's like a lot of that kind of stuff really influences a business. And so it's very hard to deal with Medicaid to begin with. That said, when you read these articles, and if all of the facts are there are some pretty egregious things going on out there. So there are people who are charging $800 an hour, I read in one of the articles, and that's just it's atrocious. It's not just inappropriate, it's just unethical, wrong in so many ways. There are people who are billing when a child naps, which is just ridiculous. And that's why, of course, it's being compared to babysitting, because if you're not doing the work that you are being paid to do, then it's fraud. It's insurance fraud. And there is I don't want to say a lot, there's some of that going on. I know there's some of that going on because sometimes Medicaid payers will come to us and say, we would like to refer hundreds of kids to you in a particular region because this other provider was doing these things, right? It was, babysitting essentially, was billing us when the children were asleep, that kind of stuff. And the third one, which I think is really important as well to Medicaid, is that there, at some point, this is while I was gone, over the last 5 years or 6, 7 years now, was at some point, some of the providers just started to cookbook, recommend, and provide 40-hour programs across the board and maintain that for years and years. And that's not ethical, clearly, because as much as I think that a child, no matter what age they are, the more ABA you do, the more benefit you'll get. That's a very different argument, right? I might personally think that, but the research that has been done is really limited to children below the age of 6 or 7, right? The research on intensive hours. And so when it comes to this term is called medical necessity. So something that health insurance or Medicaid pays for has to be medically necessary. And what does that mean? That means that it has to very directly be related to reducing the symptoms of autism that are challenging. Not just the symptoms themselves, but what makes life for an autistic challenging, and so challenging that they can't really survive. And those are the things that health insurance medical necessity is supposed to cover. And so when you're doing 40-hour programs that work on very intensive things that are not necessarily medically necessary for a 7 or 8 or 9-year-old, and you've been doing it for 5 years and the progress has been low, all of those things just point badly towards an ABA provider. I think some of that stuff was probably going on because they are quoting very specific providers and such, right? So they can't be making this stuff up. So the article basically, there's two sides to the story, right? These things that were being done were wrong. At the same time, it is extremely difficult to deal with payers like Medicaid. Okay, let's put that aside for a minute. ABA in general right now, and a lot of this does have to do with the pressure of dealing with payers in health insurance. And you know this to be true outside of autism when you look at just medical health, right? Doctors. A lot of doctors have just stopped taking insurance. A lot of doctors are very, very frustrated with the management of their practice because the way that insurance pays them, it only allows them to spend 5 or 10 minutes with a patient, right? We've seen this. Healthcare in general, where you used to have a doctor that you sit with and chat about your past and medical history and so on, just doesn't exist anymore. You wait 2 hours and maybe have 10 minutes with a doctor, and that is just healthcare now, right? And believe me, we still have the best healthcare in the world here in the U.S. Like, you should see what it's like in other countries, much worse. So it's the industry, the insurance industry, Medicaid industry. It's like they push back because they're paying a lot of money, and the algorithm with insurance is we're not supposed to be paying as much money, so there's always a pushback on that. So, but it has influenced the field of autism and ABA in the same negative way, and I can explain that. There are lots and lots of things that are pushed back on. So like we try to do very, very quality ABA. We provide more training than others. We have an ongoing system of quality assurance, etc. And I will say, I'll be the first to say, I'm not happy with the performance of every single behavior technician, but the job of my BCBAs, the supervisors, is to try to help improve them and teach them and so on. And what happens, Shannon, is that the insurance industry, whether it's commercial or Medicaid, they require so many different outcome measures that are not really relevant, to be honest. Like, they will require, here's one, they'll require number of opportunities during an hour, like number of times you interacted with a child during an hour, back and forth, right? Mm-hmm. And if I'm tracking that and 50 other things, which let me tell you, there's a million things they want. What exact procedure was used? Were there prompts involved? Did the child respond to this? What was the amount of attention? Well, how long was the session? And there's so many things that you're tracking that you tend to, and I see this a lot with providers, with clinicians, you're so focused on the data aspect that you forget the quality of what you're actually doing. You forget that you're dealing with a human being that needs your attention right now, and you need to be able to modify your program like this to benefit. Like, ABA has to be more flexible. And the bottom line is, why does all of this matter anyway? Because what you really want to know is, what's the outcome? Did the child improve? Did the child learn these things? So I think the whole system of measurements right now needs to be modified. It's unfortunate, in my opinion, because we're very focused kind of on the wrong things, not on what the kids need. Like, here's another example. I feel very strongly that kids who need medical care should be receiving medical care first. And so that's the issue. Like, if I have a 3-year-old who's extremely ill, whatever, gastrointestinal, sleep disorder, allergies, whatever it might be, and if I want to refer them for medical care first, because I just can't get them to sit still and attend, I'm losing years of time. And if they are doing that first and then coming to me when they're 4 or 5, they're not going to get intensive care anymore. You know what I mean? So it's all just a little bit mixed and messed up, and it influences the quality of ABA. And also, of course, you have to realize that there are other influences on ABA right now. It's not just health insurance that I'm talking about. As you know, there's a lot of investment in the field of ABA. These investors, whether they're private equity or other, expect a return. So that means that there's a lot of a lot of the funding that should go back into the organization to make things better doesn't. It goes into the pockets of the investors. It's really that simple. An investor makes an investment, they expect a return. Whereas, the way that we operated before I sold the company and now is all of the profits of the company go back into the company so that we can continue to give a lot of increases to our BTs, and so that we can cover things like when a parent cancels, and so that we can do a lot of training, which is extreme cost. And so those types of things don't happen as well. So the industry has just become a little bit too, financial based, and people are not really thinking in terms of, primarily I have to take care of my patients, I have to take care of my families. Everything costs, right? Like right now, I want to retrain all of our admissions folks so that they're really good on the phone. You know what? That's money. That's cost. And so if you are an investor and you're looking for a return, you're going to say, that's fine. I'm just going to leave that one alone. It's not worth putting more money into that kind of thing. So the whole concept, the money aspect has come in and has influenced the field. There's no question about that. And then the other side of it is the increase in prevalence. Like, if you think about it, 1 in 31 kids need this. Oh my gosh. These ABA universities are just doing the best they can to get BCBAs out. BCBAs can graduate and get their master's without ever having seen a child with autism. So, and then of course they have to do a practicum, but their practicum, their hours, doesn't have to be in autism. It could be in other fields. And so there's a lot of stuff wrong, a lot of it, and it all just kind of comes together, and we're trying to hold it together as best as possible. So there's, these are the unfortunate truths about what's happening. And I worry about this field. I really worry about this field because it's a fantastic science, ABA. It's really powerful and it's really amazing. And I don't think people realize how effective it is when done well. Excuse me. And what happens is, like, unfortunately, it just doesn't get done well because of all these other influences. So, there's a lot to talk about.
And if I could, I would just add one log on to your burning fire here, that all of this together translates that when a parent is starting ABA, I feel like they don't know what they're fighting for. they don't know who to listen to.
Right.
I see beleaguered parents every single day
Yep.
who are kind of lost. And part of my mission right now in life is to just say to them, this is an opportunity. It's an opportunity that not everybody gets. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not an opportunity that can easily be revisited after this moment. So if you worked so hard to get here and you don't say yes to it, that's you saying no to this opportunity. And I see a lot of parents that just don't have the right information. And
Right.
it's so disturbing to me because I know so many people fought hard. And I certainly was one of the parents that I just did not think that there was going to be insurance funding in my lifetime.
Right.
But there were people who had a stronger thought than I did, and they made it happen. And it's sad that it gets wasted sometimes because a parent doesn't understand the moment. So that's the tear. That's the tear that I'm on personally. Is
no, that's very true as well, Shannon. I mean, our parents cancel twice as much as our staff. And I always get very upset with staff who cancel too, sessions. But there are a lot of parents who don't understand the importance of this. We actually have to let go of families who don't commit to this. Yeah.
It's tragic. When we were doing sessions, that I was so panicked about not missing an hour. And one of our BTs at the time told us about a dad that I wish I could go back in time and find out who exactly it is, because they told me about a dad that had a huge calendar on the wall that he would track everything on the calendar. And that if somebody showed up even 15 minutes late, he would ask for that time back because he was that desperate that he was going to hang on to every hour. And I was like, ooh, I want to be him when I grow up. But I had a strong sense, but I got lucky. I got lucky because I had another parent tell me what was the opportunity that was going to be coming and why I should take advantage of it. And I got to see the difference in their kiddo. And so I was aware of the moment that I had, and I tried to make the most of it. And every day I get to live in that.
Yeah.
With what he can do and the peace of mind that's in my gut. But it's not, because my mission is to try to inform all those other parents. Working on it. It's hard. Anyway, I want to get to more questions about ABA because there's so much misinformation. Sure. We recently started our 11-year-old in ABA therapy. We have self-funded insurance, and it just wasn't possible before.
Yeah.
I have had several people say that ABA just isn't as effective at 11. Is that true?
No, that's absolutely not true. And this is one of the things that people get very confused, So ABA is effective. The techniques of ABA are effective no matter what age. Let's just start there. Age has nothing to do with it. What age does is that it reduces your time. So let's just talk about it and explain that a little bit. So the purpose of ABA is to teach skills. Okay, period. When you're very, very young, right? When you're 2 years old or 3 years old or so on, and we list a series of skills that you're supposed to teach, to learn, because what our goal is to try to catch you up with your peers. That's the goal when you're very young, right? And so this is the rate of your learning on your own. And what we're trying to do is increase the rate of your learning so that over the period of like 2 or 3 years, you catch up with where your peers are, which is they've been learning and you've fallen behind a little bit, trying to catch you up. Okay. Now that's very doable if you're doing very intensive work for a few years, right? But let's say, and I've talked about this for so many years. In fact, there's a segment on the Recovered video, which I talked about this as well. The goal is to catch up your mental age, the things you're able to do, with your chronological age, because every year you're aging, right? One more year, you're 1 more year older and so on. Now, if I have a 2-year-old and I have 3 years to do that, great. I can do that. If I work very intensively, by the time the individual is 5, they've learned a massive amount and they'll be very close or at the level of their peers. Great. But if I start with a 5-year-old and I'm just starting, it doesn't matter if I do 40 hours a week. By the time they're 8, there's just so many things that I would have had to teach them, because not only are they 5, but I have to go back and start because they're functioning closer to, let's say, the level of a 2-year-old, 3-year-old. So now I have to, in 3 years, by the time they get 8, I have to teach them everything that a 2-year-old does, a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old, catch them up to 8. It becomes virtually impossible. The older the child is, it becomes impossible to catch up. Because also remember that around age 5, the universe, the society expects academic skills to be added on to everything else, right? And we're talking about individuals. Sometimes it's possible because some of our kids are very lightly affected. So, and by the way, today I think is Profound Autism Day as well, if I'm not wrong. And, when you look at individuals who are profound or severely affected by autism, we're talking about individuals who can't communicate at all, who are, maybe 6, 7, 10 years old, and they don't have adaptive daily living skills, like taking care of themselves, going to the bathroom, feeding themselves. There's a lot of stuff that takes priority then when they're getting older and older. And it just becomes extremely difficult to teach as much as you must teach. So it's really important to remember what happens is when you're looking at a child who's older, you focus the program. You just don't try to teach everything because you don't have the time as the individual is getting older. You focus it. So you select the most important things. For some kids, the most important things will be safety because they're not safe. They will run into the street. They will ingest hazardous chemicals, whatever it might be. For others, it's communication because they're safe, but they're not socializing, and so they're isolating. It's different for each child what becomes a priority. But what you do is you focus on those priorities that are going to help this individual do as well as possible in society. So that's the only difference. That's why people get confused and say, oh, it doesn't work for adults. It absolutely works for adults. In fact, there are more articles on the effect of ABA with an adult than there are in terms of comprehensive. There are many, many thousands more articles on individual skills that were taught using ABA techniques. So, for example, I might have a 10-year-old, and what I'm really just focused on is teaching him to cross the street. What I'm really just focused on is teaching him not to hit his siblings, the things that are very important. Whereas when I'm working with a 3-year-old, I'm teaching pretty much everything, right? Everything I can think of. So it's the focus changes. That doesn't mean that it is ineffective. It's effective for the rest of your life. It's something that we do with every human being. So I don't know how to emphasize that anymore.
Very cool. I'm saying hi to Rodney, and we have a question that came in from Red Ant Productions. I kind of want to know more about that.
Okay.
I want to know, are you really producing Red Ants, or is that a film company? But they specifically, I'm just curious, minds have to know. They said, we've been trying to get ABA therapy in Georgia for our 18-year-old son. Seems to be non-available for him to go to. Any suggestions as to other services that can help him?
Yeah, it's very hard to actually get ABA for adults for a lot of different reasons. We serve adults. We're not in Georgia. We serve adults, but we don't have staff that are trained to serve adults with severe challenging behavior. Like, we just don't have the ability to do that because our people don't have enough training for that. Severe challenging behavior is difficult. But, ABA, I honestly, I don't know. I mean, there are programs in Georgia, obviously, and you should, if you're having a hard time finding any kind of care, I guess the only other thing I can think of is that you can get trained as a parent. You yourself can learn these techniques. It's not, it's not that hard. There are lots and lots and lots of ABA training programs that you can do online. Ours have live and online. There are like videos training people. We have lots of training for parents now. We're just about to, I think in the next month or two, I think we're going to make skills for parents publicly available, which is very, very good. Of course, we still have our IBT, Institute for Behavior Training, online. So there's lots of training that you yourself can do where you learn the techniques of ABA. And I would go back, in California, at least after the age of 13, the responsibility of providing care falls back on the regional centers, which are the Department of Developmental Services. So every state, you're going to have some access to Social Security benefits. You're going to have some access to Department of Developmental Services benefits. And I'm just trying to help you get resources so that you can hire the right people. You can certainly try to hire a BCBA privately. You don't need an organization. There are lots of BCBAs out there. The way to find it is to go on the BACB.org, which is the organization that gives the BCBA credential, and see who lives around you and hire them for a few hours, and they will help you put together. This is what we used to do in the past. We would put together workshops. And so we would put together teams of people who were assisting. We would train all of them, and we would put a supervisor in charge to move the program forward. Now, of course, Shannon, this individual can also get on Skills. Skills is publicly available. Skills is our curriculum, and we have two skills. And obviously, because we're very interested in our adults, skilled living is for adults. It's just for adults. And it has all types of skills that you can teach your adults. And there's a tremendous amount of detail in all of these. There's thousands of lessons on how to teach them on skills.
They had written back in, they said the worst thing that they had to deal with and the most frustrating thing is that when the son was diagnosed after being on a waiting list, they were on a waiting list to be diagnosed for 2 years. And he was 5 at that time. And then when they got the diagnosis, they said that he was too old. Now, I know so many people, because we're talking about 14, 15 years ago, that went through that. What I want, and maybe I don't know if you want to talk about this, Dr. Granpeesheh. We work with an incredible person, Julie Cornack, that has been at the forefront of MAPIA. And that so many of the kids that were being told, because it was a state mandate and kids would reach the age of 7 and they were being told, sorry, these benefits you're no longer available. Julie Cornack has done so much in the world to let government agencies recognize that was illegal. So much less of that is happening now, but it doesn't fix that it happened to you then. And that's a really hard thing. But I also want to say that if you're in Georgia, chances are that you probably have access to some level of insurance. And we just, Dr. Granpeesheh has just listed off a bunch of things that could really help you now. But if you have insurance and it's just that you don't have a provider, you can find a provider that's out of network and ask for a single case agreement, because as we all know, if you're paying a premium to something, you have to have access to benefits. And if there isn't any in your area, then you can petition for somebody who is in your area but isn't covered by insurance to have a single case agreement. So that's always a possibility too. But they said thank you for all your suggestions.
Shannon, I think that I think the problem they're having is that most providers just don't accept adults.
And so is it that there's no one in Georgia that's taking adults at all, or there's no one in their insurance? I think is what I want to know.
Yeah, I don't know, but I know that the vast majority of providers just don't accept adults. You remember when we came back, CARD wasn't accepting adults, and we opened the door to that again. And I love working with our adults. It's a very different, people have the misunderstanding that they think all adults have severe challenging behavior. They don't. And some of our adults are the most fun people. In fact, some of our adults are the ones that I've learned the most from, right? I mean, in terms of what is autism. So I think it's very, very difficult I've talked to many families who have adults who need help. We've done a lot of cool stuff now. We have social skills groups. Again, for this parent, we do some of our social skills groups for adults online. I don't know if that's something that would benefit this family. I love our social skills groups online. They're amazing. I've listened in on them. I just love them. I think one of our supervisors, Laura, who does these, is just brilliant. I think it's such a fun thing. As you know, I'm very passionate about the adults. I wrote a new manual that hopefully will help some of our adults. And I think that it's just very difficult. And I think the world still needs to pay attention to this because people in general think adults are either extremely severely affected or, don't need help. And the truth is, no, they're adults fall across the gambit, and some of the adults really would benefit from ABA. And so it's just harder to get help when you're an adult. Payers push back. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it's hard. You mentioned about severe challenging behavior. Somebody wrote in and said, can a child be too severe for ABA? I have not heard of this. My son had ABA for years and I recommended it to my cousin. They went through the whole process only to be told that their son was too severe. I had no idea. I would not have recommended the process. How can anyone be too severe for help? What can they do now? They are filled with grief.
Yeah. It's not that they're too severe. I know that there are some individuals where they have what we call SD, severe challenging behavior, right? So, that becomes very, very hard. So think about the fact that behavior technicians, so the people on the front lines, they're not people who are going and getting their masters, right? These are not the BCBAs, but these are technicians who have just received training from us. And we, as I said, provide more training than anyone else, but really registered behavior technicians or VCAT, certified people who work with your child, have only really received maybe a month or two of actual training, right? And they are not able to deal with or manage properly, let's say, a 10-year-old who has severe aggression, okay, or elopes, runs away, or just throws objects, or spits and hits and kicks and so on, because these are like young, small. The majority of our behavior technicians in this field by far are women, and they just cannot manage let's say, older and severely challenging type of individual, someone who has behaviors that are aggressive.
Is it too much to say that there's a tipping point at becomes unsafe for the individual and for the worker?
It's unsafe for everyone. It's unsafe for the individual because they can hurt themselves or hurt others or run away. It is unsafe for the worker, the behavior tech. It's also unsafe for all the other children in that center. So it's unsafe as a whole, right? And it's ineffective. That's the other part of it. Like if a child who's 10 years old becomes aggressive and actually gets what they want by becoming aggressive because the behavior technician was weak in their training, then the child has learned that aggression is effective. So it is not good overall. So there are centers that are very focused on just individuals with severe challenging behavior. This is a lot more different training. It's a lot more. Our people, in the past, we used to have a whole group that dealt with severe challenging behavior. We had a large team, and we still, to this day, we force part of our training for every single BT, behavior technician at CARD, is assaultive behavior management. Every single person gets trained in that. But sometimes it's not enough. It's just not enough. And you have to realize that very, very, very few cases do payers actually approve a 2-to-1 ratio. So in other words, 2 instructors to 1 individual, which is sometimes necessary. If you have, let's say, a 10 to 18-year-old who's aggressive, you might need 2 interventionists. And so the whole system is very difficult, and it becomes much more difficult if the person has severe challenging behavior. I would love to know because a 5-year-old might have severe challenging behavior. That to us doesn't matter because most of our team can manage the behavior of a smaller individual. But when the individual is larger and they have severe challenging behavior, it just becomes very difficult.
Absolutely. Somebody wants to know, is ABA different for boys and girls? I know ABA presents differently in girls. Is the treatment different?
Autism can present differently in boys and girls. We've kind of talked about this in the past. ABA is not different. ABA is just a technique, and it can be applied. It is applied equally across the board, no matter gender doesn't matter, age doesn't matter. It's all ABA. But autism can present differently, and autism can present differently in all individuals, right? But there's a lot of literature on the concept that with girls, because of the things and the behaviors that are normally expected of girls. For example, if a girl is very shy, it is more, from a society perspective, people don't recognize that as a problem as much as they recognize shyness, introversion from a boy as a problem. People expect boys to be much more active and outgoing and so on and so forth. So because of these societal expectations that we have, a girl, let's say, who starts to become more and more isolated might be misunderstood as just being shy. And so it often affects girls in the sense that they might get diagnosed later, and they've wasted time that way. There's things like that are just societal expectations of gender norms. Other than that, though, no, ABA is applied equal in the same way to boy or girl.
But what people may not realize is how individually specific everyone's program is, regardless of if they're a boy or a girl, and if they're 7 or 17, that no 2 programs look alike. Is that, am I right there?
Yeah, 100%. And especially not just when it's the actual program, right? The actual program is always very, very individualized and selected for the individual. So no 2 individuals who have autism are the same. They all have different skills, different issues, different problems, different abilities. But also even the rewards, the reinforcers are very individualized. Something that might be a reinforcer for one individual might be aversive for another individual. So it has to be, in order to be effective, it has to be individualized. Some people learn more visually, others learn more through auditory means. Some people have a short attention span, others have visual problems where they can't see visual stimuli. I mean, it has to be completely individualized.
Absolutely. So Red Ant wrote back and they said, this is a very scary time for them. There are behaviors that we never thought we would deal with. They say, my wife and I are scared that we may not be able to handle it due to a stroke or a heart attack. We just had no idea what to do at this point. He was in speech and through school, but that did not address inappropriate behaviors and aggressive behaviors. They went on to say, thank you both. I will continue to listen to your suggestions. God bless you both for the knowledge you are giving. And so, scary time. And 18 is a very scary time. There's so much to be discussed here. And I know, you really gave some great advice before, Dr. Granpeesheh, about skills living and skills for parents, which we've not had a great opportunity to talk about here, but I'm so excited and hopeful about what that is going to do for parents,
Me
because it's
too.
a level of care that previously we haven't seen in any other way, that I'm excited. But especially if we could take a minute to talk about things, because when a child turns 18, and I've seen this too often, that it's sometimes a surprise that they're having challenging behaviors that they didn't see before. I want to take a second to talk about conservatorship, but I want you to talk about whatever you feel inspired to say to this dad.
No, I mean, conservatorship is a very important factor, obviously, because once your child is 18, you're in a place, it's very, very difficult to manage what you think is appropriate for your child if you don't have conservatorship. And so, yeah, please, Shannon, go into it, because that's like one of the most important things you can do.
We really try to counsel parents that when your child is turning 16, to begin the conversation with your legal professional, because on the day that your child turns 18, if you have not already gotten your child conserved, you're going to be playing catch up.
Yeah.
So it's best if you start having the conversation. You can have it as early as 14. You just can't do anything about it until right before they're turning 18. But basically, it's you appearing before court, and they will assign an attorney to really represent your child. But you'll go into a court, and in most states, I think it's 21 different points of conservatorship that maybe you won't fully conserve them. But there are things on there like you will have the right to their medical information. You will have the right to make medical decisions. You will have the right to say where they live. You will have the right to say where their money goes. You will have the right to say who they can or cannot marry. There are some that are like you will have that do they have the right to vote, right? There are some that most people, it's like, yes, we want to give them that right to do themselves, but as a protection from the world, it's important to decide what your child needs to have, because at 18, if you don't have conservatorship, you don't even get to hear what's happening. If your child is taken to the emergency room and the doctors are working on them, they can't violate HIPAA and tell you what's going on unless you have conservatorship. So if you don't have conservatorship, I'm going to tell you, and your child is newly 18, it's going to take a couple of months, but I'm going to tell you to run, do not walk, get that conservatorship, because you technically, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Granpeesheh, they can't even start ABA therapy without the 18-year-old's consent.
Right.
If you don't have conservatorship. You can't even ask the doctor to, look at them to see if they have strep throat. So you want to make sure that you have that protection. And once you do, and you'll decide how many with your lawyer, and the judge will hear and decide how many that they're comfortable giving you for your child, then you have more avenues to decide what to do. But the challenging behavior thing after 18, it's a very difficult, and as an aging parent, like I can't even imagine. But we've done shows, and I encourage you to look on Autism Live with, for instance, Vena Tiero, a parent that had 2 boys, and one of them, she was able to get help early on, and he's doing really well. The other son, because she missed it while she was giving her other son therapy, he ended up being more severe and having severe physical needs. And, he's a jumper and a runner and a puncher. And it was very, Vena, if you talked to Vena when she was younger, she would have said, I would never, ever put my child in a placement. It's never, ever going to happen. And then there was the day that they were on the street corner, and her son, out of nowhere, just punched her in the head and knocked her out on the sidewalk. So there she was, passed out on the sidewalk, knocked out cold. And there is her son, who is a jumper and a runner, on a street corner with nobody taking care of him. And when she came to, she said, I came to with the knowledge that this wasn't going to work anymore. And she's a success story. He is in a home where there are 3 young men, and there is a staff of people and a family that lives there that help to take care of him. Her relationship with him is better than it ever was. He has begun to learn to communicate, and she sees him all the time. She is very much with her child parent, but he does not live with her.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a hard thing, but she says it was the best thing in the world for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I offer that up. I know it's scary to think that maybe your child won't live with you forever, but that doesn't mean that you have completely given ownership of your parenthood away. And for some families, it is the only choice. But you want to research it early and find some place where it's a loving, fabulous place where you have access to your child on a regular basis. Tough.
Yeah, totally agree, Shannon.
Anyway, I think we have time for at least one more question. So somebody wrote in and said, I've been told that my 4-year-old, who is minimally verbal, is too high functioning for ABA. Is that a thing?
Well, no, that's definitely the answer to that is absolutely not. It's, I think when you have a 4-year-old who is verbal, and that's like the most beautiful thing. We get very excited with our young kids who are starting out verbal because they have very high potential because there's less to teach. Like just that simple, right? It's more likely that you'll be able to get their mental age to their chronological age. So no, that's obviously not correct. This goes back, Shannon, to the whole thing that I was talking about earlier as well. I should say what I'm noticing, when I first started CARS many, many years ago, and all the folks still talk about that, the way that we taught is a little bit different from the way that ABA is being taught at universities to our BCBAs right now. Like it has changed. Like the way that we looked at, and this is the influence of insurance, I think, more than anything else. The way that we looked at it was my goal is to help this individual learn every possible thing they can learn to help them do as well as possible in life, right? So it was a very kind of a whole program. It was like, if I need to, and the goal in those days, obviously, before health insurance, was to help the individual mainstream into school. And then from there to just have a successful life. And, we did this over and over with many of our kids. That has changed because the goal is no longer to do everything for the individual. The goal is to teach them only skills that will reduce their challenging behaviors. So, for example, a lot of these CBAs who are coming out of school right now, out of their master's programs right now, were taught to obviously focus on the challenging behavior and not on the skill teaching. So it's kind of like, oh, this individual has tantrums. Okay, can I just teach them to request things, which will eliminate the tantrum, but then I'm done. And you're not done. There's a million other things that you can teach this individual to help them do better in society, right? So there's a lot of, those things are very, very important. And those are some of the ways that the field has completely changed. And it's sad to see that.
Yeah, it really is so frustrating to me because we were just talking about this opportunity. You have an opportunity. Yeah. And I say to parents all the time, push back, find a different ABA provider. If your insurance says if your child is under the age of 5 and has a diagnosis, and you see that there are things that they're struggling with, push back. Because the research is there and you have the means to push back. I should say that there's a whole process that we don't realize. I didn't know this until our families started to have this happening, is that if you get a denial from insurance, let's say you've asked for something and you get a denial, you're going to get, you have to ask them for it in writing. And when you get it in writing, there is a place on the back of the form usually that says, if you would like to appeal this decision, and you just keep appealing and appealing and appealing. We've done shows on that. And I encourage you to look them up because it's very effective. I want to get to another question though. My 2-year-old just got diagnosed got a diagnosis of autism. Is that are they too little to start ABA? My pediatrician says no, but my husband and I aren't sure.
Yeah. No, they're not too young. It's a perfect age to start ABA. It starts a little bit slow and a little bit different because of the fact that it's a 2-year-old. So, for example, your 2-year-old will likely still be napping. And so there will be a lot of breaks in therapy. It's lighter. The first few months, at least, there's a lot of play involved. Because the individuals working with your child are supposed to be using that time to really bond and get the 2-year-old's trust. And it has to be a little bit more kind of fun. 3-year-olds too. Like you have to make sure that the younger kids, because you're placing a lot of demands, right? I mean, people have to realize ABA can be fun, but at the same time, it's teaching, right? And you're placing a lot of demands, like a 2-year-old who would normally tantrum in order to not do what they want. In ABA, that doesn't happen anymore. You can tantrum, but we're still going to do what we were going to do, right? So there's that demands that are new. You can tantrum, but I still need you to use your words. Like it's teaching. So because it's a 2-year-old, we tend to go very light. It's a lot of play, a lot of like more reinforcers than demands. Let's put it that way. And by the time the individual hits 3, now we're like, okay, the reinforcers and the demands are pretty even. But 2 is the best time to start. It's absolutely the best time to start.
I want to squeeze one more in because I love this question. What are some questions I should ask while touring an ABA center to see if it's a good fit for my child?
That's a really, really good question. There's a million things you should evaluate. Okay, so you should ask about the training that is given to the behavior technicians. That's number one. The behavior technicians need to be trained well so that they can follow the orders of a BCBA correctly. Okay, that's number one. Second one is, what curriculum are you using? So what is the BCBA following? If the BCBA is just teaching skills that replace challenging behaviors, you need to go a little bit beyond that. And you need to ask them, well, what if my child's challenging behaviors are overcome? What happens then? So you need to ask about the curriculum, just so you know that it's going to be broad and individualized. If you, as a parent, go to the organization and you say, I want to teach my child to be able to interact back and forth and tell jokes with his peers. Are they going to be able to teach that? So ask them those types of questions and make sure they have a broad curriculum and they know what they're doing in terms of selection of lessons. Okay? That's number 2. So training of BTs. I'm not worried about training of BCBAs because they get that in school, the training of the techniques. But for the BCBAs, it becomes very important to know what curriculum they're following, right? And then ask them, like, what are your overall goals for my child? See if they understand that their goals have to be your goals. Ask them that, find out what happens if the payer, your insurance pushes back. Is the BCBA willing to fight for your child? Or are they willing to actually, tell the payer, no, this isn't correct. This is what we're going to do. Ask them what the transition is after how many years they think your child will be there, and then how they transition your child to the next thing. Ask them how often they meet with you. Do they consider parent training to be important? They should. These things are all very, very important things. And then I think if you get the opportunity to observe them working with other kids, it's not so much about the BCBAs, it's more about the BTs. Then that's very important. We always offer tours to our families because I think you also have to feel comfortable because you're leaving your child in the care of these individuals all day. But not just that, you have to be comfortable that your child is also around other kids who are happy and not demonstrating challenging behaviors that your child might learn. There's a lot of stuff. You just want to make sure it's kind of like evaluating a school, honestly. But now you have a lot of teachers, so you have to evaluate each of them.
That's amazing. And we're totally out of time. But I appreciate you so much, Dr. Granpeesheh.
It was so good to see you, Shannon.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Amen. I just want to remind everybody we got a live show tomorrow with Dr. Megan Anna Neff. She's got, Dr. Granpeesheh, it's the best thing ever. It's a deck of cards that are self-care skills for people on the spectrum. It's
lovely.
We have gone gazanga over it, and we're finally having her on to talk about it. Vince and I have drooled over this thing. So have we introduced
I love that.
Oh, you're just going to love it. Anyway, that's tomorrow, you guys. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.
Bye, everyone.
Don't forget, you can watch Ask Dr. Doreen live every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific time. We hope to see you there.